Hi guys, great to see you here in the group. I'm just on my computer today, so it might be a bit trickier for me to see comments and things from you, but I will do my best. If you're here, please give us a wave. Um, so what we're going to be talking about today is artificial sweeteners. We had a question in the group, one about artificial sweeteners, one about flowers. Today we'll be talking about artificial sweeteners, and then next time I hope to be talking about flowers. So, flowers as in coconut flower, almond flower, that sort of flower, not as in dahlias and sunflowers. So do pop into the comments and give us a wave. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to see them today. Let me just have a look. Maybe, maybe not. My phone's just a little bit out of action today. So artificial sweeteners, yes or no? So let's talk a little bit about that. So first thing, in general with the keto lifestyle, obviously we're cutting out sugars totally because they affect our blood glucose and our insulin levels. I can see it, Alex. Thank you. That's good. This is a little bit of a different platform, so I can see your comments. Fantastic. So we want to cut out all sugars because they raise our insulin levels and also our glucose levels. But should we be doing artificial sweeteners or not? Tell me, just put a comment yes or no if you have artificial sweeteners as part of your keto lifestyle. No judgment here. Just tell us yes or no whether you do or not. That'd be really interesting to know. So in general, we want to get rid of we will get rid of all sugar from our lives. However, artificial sweeteners, one of the things that artificial sweeteners can do as a general principle is that they can maintain that craving that we have for sweet things in our life, in our diet. So even though we're not necessarily getting the carbs that you get from sugar, and we're not necessarily getting the inflammation that you get from sugar, we still maintain that craving for the sweet things like cakes and ice creams and things, perhaps sweet drinks that we have that we used to get through sugar, and we can still potentially get that craving when we have sweeteners. So are we necessarily cutting that ongoing craving for things that are not necessarily healthy for us in our lives? Now you can be yes, Alex, you use them. Thanks for letting me know. I personally don't use them just because I don't like the taste. Not that I'm against them, but I just don't particularly like the taste. I will occasionally have something, but only if it's a particular occasion. And in general, they're not my first choice. So they can be really useful as a way of keeping us on the keto lifestyle. If you just love something sweet in your coffee, like a little sweetness in your coffee, or if you like the occasional ice cream or the occasional cake, then there's nothing wrong with having some artificial sweetener if it will help you keep in general on your keto lifestyle. Although we know that for some people, the minute they have something sweet, then they crave more sweetness in their lives. And so, for some people, it's an absolute no, have to go cold turkey and be done with it. Whereas for other people, they can manage it a little bit in their lives. So be interested to know, but, just drop in the comments which you think you are. Are you an abstainer, or can you cope with a bit of artificial sweetener in your life? So that's the first thing that I just want to talk about is that artificial sweeteners can have a place in our keto diet, but for some people they just can't cope with them. So the next thing I want to talk about is if you do use artificial sweeteners, what are the things that you should look out for? I'm afraid just outside my window we've got a very active crow who's decided to sit out on the fence and squawk. So apologies if you can hear some squawking. It is a very active and noisy, actually they're not crows, they're ravens, native raven. We're very lucky to have ravens. It's exciting, but they are noisy. So the first thing I want to just talk about is even though a sweetener may be artificial and not contain sugar, sometimes they do contain carbs in them. So For example, those little packets of, stevia in the raw, and those little kind of sachets that you get at restaurants, they don't have to declare that they have carbs in them if they're less than 1.9 grams, less than 2 grams, those packages. So a lot of them are actually 1.9 grams, which means that they don't have to declare that they have carbs in them. So just be aware that if you're having a lot of those little packets, that they do add up to quite a bit. So just be aware about hidden carbs, and make sure that you read the labels. The second thing is that sweeteners, artificial sweeteners, even though they don't have any sugar in them, just that sweetness, they can actually raise our insulin and our blood glucose levels. And that's actually the whole point of the keto diet, is to keep the insulin and the blood glucose low. So if we're having something that doesn't necessarily have carbs, but will raise our blood glucose levels, then what have we really achieved? We haven't really achieved what we've set out to do. These things are reasonably new in our diet. I mean, I guess they've been around for 40 or 50 years, but really the research on them is ramping up now, and that there's more types of artificial sweeteners coming on the market, and people are really still understanding the physiology, so the processing in the body of how it works. And we know that actually raising blood glucose levels actually starts in the mind. Before you even eat anything, it starts with the anticipation that you're going to eat something sweet, and you might feel your mouth start to water. I don't know, you might even feel it start to water even as we're just talking about sweet things. And so what can happen is that even before you've eaten something sweet, your body gets ready to digest it. And then once you put it in your mouth, digestion actually starts in your mouth with your saliva and with your taste buds, and you get some signals sent to your body. Oh, sugar's coming. Need to start raising insulin to get ready to deal with this, with the glucose that it thinks is the sugar that it thinks is coming. So just be aware that some artificial sweeteners can actually raise your insulin levels and your blood glucose levels. So we'll talk about a couple that don't when we get a little bit further into this, and we're only going to be here for probably another 5 or 10 minutes. It's quite a brief session. So tell me, what's your artificial sweetener of choice that you use, Alex? If you want to let us know, that'd be really, really good to know what you prefer to use. The next thing I just want to talk about is actually about this thing about artificial sweeteners haven't actually been around for all that long. And so we're really still starting to understand some of the longer term effects of them on the body. A lot of them are actually processed from sugar, and they go through, quite an industrialized process using solvents and things to extract them. So it can be quite a industrialized process. And so, obviously the more natural the things that we can eat, the less processed the things that we can eat, obviously the better. And that's actually another reason to, reduce the amount of or exclude the amount of artificial sweetener in your life. So there are some where the Food and Drug Administration does recommend that they're safe for use. However, there are still studies ongoing, so that's something just to be aware of if there is the potential toxic effects on the body. So the three that I'm going to talk to you about now are ones that are okay for having on a keto diet. They're keto friendly because they don't raise blood or insulin levels, and so far the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, has said that they are safe for use. So the first one that I'm going to talk about is stevia, which I know is one that a lot of you use. Stevia comes from a leaf from South America. I used to actually have some growing in my garden here in Australia, and I don't know that you can get it in the States, but you can buy it as a garden plant here in Australia, and let me tell you, eat one of those leaves, they're pretty sweet. So you only need a very small amount of it. In the US it's processed, and in fact worldwide it's processed into a powder. So the good thing is that it's extremely sweet, so you only need a very small amount of it. Doesn't raise your blood or glucose levels, and so far it's demonstrated as safe for human consumption. A couple of things about it. I don't know. Monk fruit. Good. I'm going to talk about monk fruit, Alex, in a minute. So that's fantastic. With stevia, one of the things I don't like about it is it has quite a strong aftertaste. and so it sort of tastes nice at the time, and then you still get a sort of a bit of. I always have to brush my teeth afterwards. I find I don't like the aftertaste of it, but certainly it's a really good option. The other thing that people often mix it with is erythritol. So erythritol, because it's got an ol at the end of it, means that it's an alcohol. It's a sugar alcohol. It's not alcoholic. It's just the chemical form of it means that it's an alcohol. And that's derived from processing corn or cornstarch. So again, comes from a natural product, but a little bit industrialized, not hugely, but a bit industrialized. And again, that's reasonable. It doesn't raise your blood sugar or your glucose, blood glucose or your insulin levels. One of the things I was going to say about stevia is it's not good for cooking. You can't kind of substitute it for sugar. But one of the things you can do with erythritol is actually substitute it sort of 1-for-1 into, I think it's 1-for-1, into your cooking, so that and your baking. So that's quite handy. But again, it has a bit of a funny aftertaste to it. So what you find is that the manufacturers often do a bit of a mixture of the different sweeteners to try and enable you to cook with it, but still not give you that funny aftertaste. So when you're buying your sweeteners, just have a look at the label and see what it's on. Alex, you said use Swerve. I do know what Swerve's a mixture of, and I just can't recall for the moment. I haven't got it written down in my notes, but we might pop that in the comments a little bit later as to what Swerve's a mixture of, because I think Swerve is actually a mixture. And monk fruit, this is probably the latest one on the market, which is its actual name is Hanguo, is the I think the Chinese name for it. Comes from northern Thailand and from China, originally grown by monks, which is why it's called monk fruit. Alex, do you like the taste of it? Let us know what you think of the taste of it. It's actually not a sugar. It's something called a mogroside. It's a different type of sugar, but it's intensely sweet, and it does in general have a better taste than some of the other sweeteners. However, it is expensive, and so manufacturers, when they put it in their processed food products, they generally cut it in with a few other things like inulin and other types of sweeteners and to bulk it out a little bit so that they don't have to put so much of it in their product. So again, we'll do another session another day about how to read food labels, but just be very careful if it says it has monk fruit in it. Just check what other ingredients it has in it, because it might only have a very small amount of monk fruit and they might have filled it out with other sweeteners that actually will raise your blood glucose and your insulin levels. And again, monk fruit currently demonstrated as safe, but as we know, there's a lot of research. It's a very active area, a lot of research going on in these areas. So as I become aware, of any sort of changes to that guidance, I'll certainly pop in the group and let you know here. But certainly we would only put things here in the group that we know are FDA approved. So there you have it. The first thing I just want to say is if you can cut out or reduce artificial sweeteners out of your life, obviously getting sugar out of your life is the number one. If you can get artificial sweeteners out of your life, great. If you feel that you need them occasionally or because, otherwise you're going to find it really hard to stick in with the keto diet, then absolutely, have artificial sweeteners. Just be aware of the ones that you're choosing and the ones that currently are most recommended, either on their own or in a mixture, are stevia, erythritol, and monk fruit, and they come in different brands. But as always, read the labels. So I hope that's really useful. I'd be really interested in your comments. What insights you've got from this session. So please, give us a comment in there. It's great to see some familiar faces on the live. So thanks very much. Have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in the group. Bye.